on the computer.
Got it.
Hello, beautiful military community, military spouses, whoever's chiming in from wherever in the world. This is Vanessa Donaldson. I am your host today, co-hosting actually. I'm a military spouse empowerment guide, and I've been married 26 years to my U.S. Marine Corps hubby. So we've been retired about 10 years. And our co-host today is Lianne, coming from Canada, just up the way. Lianne also is a podcast host. She hosts Coffee and Crime with a Military Wife. I love that title. And she is
Mm-hmm.
active duty. She's on the active duty side. So her husband is with the Canadian Armed Forces, and they've been together for 5 years. So we thought we would just bring some tips today from both perspectives, retirement side, I'm over the hump now, and then Lianne, who's in the thick of it and just doing amazing things and has an amazing attitude. So I was like, yeah, we connected on Facebook. I'm like, we got to talk. So that's what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing. We're giving a voice to our military spouses. We want them to be seen, heard, validated, loved, appreciated, empowered, all those things. So today we're talking about something we talked offline about, and we thought we should really expand this and share this with the community. And it is the importance of like having your independence and alone time, even though you're married, so that we don't get that unhealthy feeling of like being that needy attachment where we can't do anything without the guy. And I can share more on that too as we go. So today we're focusing on 5 tips on the importance of alone time in a healthy military marriage. So get comfortable, grab a seat, grab your coffee. It's coffee or crime, right? Maybe they'll grab some coffee or tea and we'll get rolling. So point number one, I'll mention the points, the tips, and then Lianne will share her feedback as well as from the active duty side. I'm sure she's got a lot to share. So the first point is personal growth. Personal growth is, when we're just spending time on ourselves, doing things that maybe our hubby's not into. Maybe it could be crocheting, something like that, and your hubby's not going to sit down and want to crochet with you. Maybe you're a reader and he's not, and you want to, get through some books on your own. So personal self-growth, what that looks like for you, hobbies that you might want to be doing for yourself that maybe don't involve your husband. You can do stuff together too, of course, but this we're talking about things that you can do for personal growth for yourself and how important that is in a healthy military marriage. So what can you add there for personal growth tips for our community, Lianne?
I think it's really important to have a sense of self and a sense of who you are as a person. Just because you're married to a military spouse, that is important, but it's also important to have your own sense of self and who you are. So, as you mentioned, finding stuff that you like to do, whether it's crocheting, crafting, it's great, and it's also great to have time alone with your friends and have time alone with their friends, and they do their own thing with their friends. And then at the end of the day, if you can come back and watch a movie together or talk, how was your day, and just kind of debrief that way. I think it's great because at the end of the day, we all know in the military lifestyle, they're not always there. So if you're attached to the hip with your partner and then he leaves for 6 months, then, and it does happen, but then I find in that case, you often struggle when they're away and you have even more of a harder time of trying to find that balance and trying to find yourself when that partner is not there. So it's important to have that sense of identity, I think.
I love it. And what a great
Yeah.
way to kick it off. It really is kind of like a priority point number one. Like if you don't
Yeah.
know yourself and have your identity and are not happy in your own skin and comfortable with who you are and how you show up in the world, it's going to be hard to connect with other people, to bring your light and love to other people because you're going to be so busy working on yourself and trying to figure out internally, what's off. So definitely self personal growth identity is huge. I love that. So point number two would be mental health. So this is ways that, and mental health is like a huge topic, I think, in this generation, especially once the pandemic hit too. Like the whole mental health industry
Oh,
just took on a whole different plane all over the world. Doesn't matter where you're living. So the mental health side, which means like relaxing, unwinding, recharging, those kind of things have to do with your mental health, kind of like a self-care thing. Like what do you do, that's maybe a physical activity, meditation. I mean, I'm a life coach, so meditation, breath work, like what do you do to calm yourself down to when you are stressed and take care of your mental health? Because if you're just going to ignore that and try to sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not there or hide those emotions and feelings, chances are, you're going to blow up at some point, and you might be blowing up at each other at that point. And we all know, like, military marriages, I mean, probably over 50%, I think the last statistic I read, end up in divorce. And a lot of it is the mental health. I mean, yeah, the guys are gone a lot. If you're a mom, being single mom with 2 kids or 3 kids or whatever's running around your house, and you don't even have a night out to like have a babysitter so you can go maybe get your nails done or something. Like, if you're not programming and prioritizing that time, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. So what can you add, Lianne, for the importance of mental health and maintaining that as a military spouse?
I think again, it comes to like having a support system and knowing who you are and also knowing your limits. I think this is an important piece along with mental health. Like, as we talked about a little bit before, I'm very busy. So I work full time. I study part time. I have another part time job helping to build prison letter writing kits, and I ship them amongst different to different prison institutions so the people inside can write letters to their families. And they found I've done such a good job with the adult ones that someone from that institution or that organization is having less of a caseload or less stuff to do. So they wanted me to do kid ones as well. So I said, well, okay, so see how that goes. I'm just adding on to that caseload. And then I have this podcast, and then it's just busy, 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 which I do like to be busy, but I also have to Dylan, can you get the food? Ozzy's after it. It's also very important to find, so know your limits and know when, and like enough is enough, I guess, and be aware of what your limits are and burnout. So I think that's super important, whether you're in the field of whatever you're in as a professional, and even as a mom being alone at home, knowing when that burnout point is. Because I'm not a parent, but I'm sure for those of you who are, I think you may identify as being a mom first, especially for little ones, which is super important. But it's also important to have time for you as well. So I think you, Vanessa, you mentioned before when you were in active duty, you had your friends and family supporting you and raising your kids because you wanted to go back to school. So that, I think, is a great example of, mental health, putting yourself first. And that's great, like having that sense of community. I don't know how well that would go nowadays. So I think that was super lucky for you to have that support back then. I think now people are so busy in their own little world, which is fine. But it just goes to show like how different the world is nowadays, and how people what priorities are, I guess, for some people. And it's just different how that mindset has changed, I guess. But mental health is super important. And another piece too I'd like to add is when I first started dating Dylan and me going into the social work field, we had that discussion. I said, okay, me and you, we're both predispositioned to PTSD, trauma, anxiety, depression. I've been to therapy before. I'm a big advocate for therapy. And I said, if you ever go on tour and you see all the bad side of it, would you go to therapy? And he did say yes. And we will see if and when the time comes, if he would, but I think he would go. But we had that discussion and we thought, like, if we have kids, like, how are we going to handle that and mental health, and, setting those priorities and making sure that we're well, because if we're not well, then we aren't able to take care of others as well. So,
So
yeah.
valuable. Yeah, that's a huge point. And you were saying you don't know if it would work this day and age if for support group. Yeah, I moved around every 2 to 4 years my mom was in Virginia at that time working at the time. So I didn't have family, nearby. So I relied on church communities. That's where I looked to for help and for support. So it would just so happen, if you're kind of leading an active Christian life and you're in a church and someone's struggling, the whole purpose is to be the hands and feet of Jesus and help people when they're struggling and not to ignore it and stay in your little me world box. So in a church community, for me at least, that was, the lucky thing that happened. I mean, a lady literally walked by on the street in San Clemente, California. We were stationed at Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base, and she passed me a flyer saying, church meeting here on a corner. And I'm pushing my stroller with my baby. I knew my husband was getting ready to deploy. I never even knew what the word deployment meant. I was like, a D, what? What are you going to do? Yeah, I'm going to zip over and do this like Westpac thing and be gone for 6 months and I'll be back home. And I'm like, excuse me. So all I could think of was to run to God. And so the fact that this like angel fell from the sky and passed me a flyer and I brought it home, and thank God my husband saw the value of it too. I said, we have this flyer for this church that's meeting, a little small church down the road. Like, can we go on Sunday? Because I'm going to need some help with this when you're gone. And so they were so supportive. And yeah, they were the ones that like literally rotated my daughter around on the weekends so I could go Friday night school and Saturday, Sunday, all day, full day for months until my husband came home. And then he helped, towards the end part. And I continued that cycle for like a year and a half. I just got my master's in administration, master of science administration, and did it all. And I had mentioned to you before, the first deployment, I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about self growth, personal development. I was just like deer in the headlights. Oh my gosh, my husband just left me and I'm home with a baby. Like, what the heck just happened in my world? So there was a lot of pity party. There was a lot of, complaining to myself, feeling like the victim and all that. And in fact, I was just at a prayer session with women. They meet at the church on Tuesdays and just like silent prayer. It's kind of a cool thing. And I just met the woman. I said, my name is Vanessa. And she looked at me and she's like one of the elders in the group. And she said, Victorious Vanessa. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, let me put out that to the world. I want to be victorious Vanessa, not victim Vanessa. So
I like
I'm gonna
that.
now. I know, I love it too. But the fact that she said that, like, it just even empowered me more. Like my shoulders went up a little. I'm like, yeah, I am victorious. I've been through a lot and I can handle this with support and faith in God and all that. So yeah,
I love
so
that.
that's how that came about. But so okay, 5 points for the importance of alone time in a military marriage. We said number one already was personal growth. Number two, mental health. And now we're going into number three. Ooh, this is a fun one. Rekindling romance. Rekindling romance, which means like to reignite and put that spark back in your marriage. I'm actually working with another woman who wrote a book called Your Treasured Marriage. And I met her through Christian networking groups like years ago in California, and we still keep in touch. So she's on TikTok too. She's in her 70s on TikTok. I saw this pop up saying Millennial Closet, the Millennial Closet, mom with a book or something. And I was like, what is Jeannie doing out there? And she was promoting her book on TikTok. And so when I mentioned that I got to have her in my space for these military spouses to talk about this stuff, and I'm reading her book right now, and she's like, absolutely. I mean, military spouses are like near and dear to her heart. She's like, whatever I can do to help support. So hopefully, yeah, maybe you'll be part of that too. We'll do a book
Yeah.
and just she's got just full of chock full tips on marriage. I mean, your treasured marriage, how to treasure it, how to keep it treasured, how to guard it, all that stuff. So I would love to share that with other military spouses to set them up for, success on the other side, not just in some silo, spiraling tornado hole of going down the other way. So there are resources out there. There's people to help along the way. So use them. Life wasn't meant to be alone. So be open to receiving, help if people are seeing red flags and struggling. So rekindling your marriage, like it allows when you're alone from each other, it actually at the same time you create this longing for each other because now, for example, I went on a girls trip. We went and I kept putting it off. I think I told you that too. I had women, I was like, I needed some girlfriends. And I was like, don't you have any girlfriends? Because he can just pick up the phone and talk to some combat vet from, whenever. He's got his list of buddies. He can call, pick up the phone, message them on Facebook anytime, and they will prioritize, for each other and pick up the call and talk. And I'm like, we moved around every 2 to 4 years. So I'm kind of building a new military spouse circle every time. So that was kind of lonely and isolating. I'm not on one base the whole time. And we've been from California to Africa to Trinidad and Tobago and the West Indies to Texas to where else we got after that? The Middle East, UAE, and then Hawaii, and then back to California. Like, yeah, every 2 to 4 years around the world, literally trying to build these relationships. So I kind of felt like left out, or like, what about me? I got to have some girls to hang out with. And luckily, some Christian women would just message me like once a year, like, hey, we're doing a girls' trip. Want to join us? And then something would hold me back every time. I'd be like, because I was kind of a little more on the needy side of the wife. I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave my husband. How am I gonna do
Mhm.
that? And I turn him down every time. No, thank you. It's okay. I got something going on. So they never gave up on me. And then last year they messaged again, hey, girls trip again, want to come? And I talked about it with my husband. I said, do you think I should go on this girls trip? He's like, absolutely. You need to have some women to hang out with. And they're Christian women. Like he knows we're not going to be doing some crazy stuff. There's some people he might think twice and be like, no, I don't think you need to be in her space. But with the Christian ladies from our old church, and we used to work out on the beach together. It's like a really, good supportive crowd. So we drove and we went to the Creation Museum and Noah's
Oh
Ark,
wow.
tucking stuff. It was so cool. And we laughed and played along the way. We stayed at it was all driving with one car. We took turns driving, the main person's car. And every day that I was away, I was still messaging my husband, I love you. I think I said it more on text than, you do sometimes I love you. I miss
Yeah.
you. And it's like we're dating again. And every day that went on, I'm starting to like, first I'm panicking, like, when am I going to see him again? What's the day? What's the countdown? But it was so important to have that female connection, female time away. And he was, supportive of it, which is great. I mean, if you have a spouse who's like the other boundary side of, very possessive and not letting you out and not letting you breathe and have that space, that needs to be worked on too, because that's not so healthy. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's all under rekindling your romance. So when you do get together, oh my gosh, I got together with the group and her spouse was there, and everybody, reacts differently. Some are not very touchy in public or whatever. I didn't care. Ran up to him. I had some new cowboy boots I think I bought in Tennessee on the way home or something. We passed through, where was it? Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We passed through on the way home. I got me some cowboy boots and a hat, and I texted him. I'm like, I'm spending like $300 today, honey. I'm getting me some boots and a hat, and I came home with it and gave him a big hug and smooch, and it was like dating again. It was awesome. So yeah, there's a
Yeah,
reason.
it is nice.
What do you want to add to that in five
Um,
years?
yeah, well, I think that goes back again to like personal growth and having your own little circle and mental health, and that's super healthy to have your own thing and to do your own thing. For the rekindling side, when my partner goes away, we're texting, we're FaceTiming, we're doing the things when time allows for him on his side, and of course, we have to take in consideration the time difference. So either he's waking up and I'm going to bed or whatever, but we still make time. Um, we first started dating, he was away for 11 months. And I remember being alone in my apartment and it was late. I was in bed, having phone calls, and he'd call me late as well. And even if it was just 10-15 minutes, like it was better than nothing. And we made time. And of course, we tried to like rekindle some stuff and do the whole Snapchat things and whatever, send like little pictures of ourselves and just being cute and oh, this is what I'm doing today, and hair all messy, and it was kind of cute. And then I find when he gets back, I know for me personally, I kind of get shy all over again. And it's like, oh, don't touch that back roll, or turn the lights off, whatever. Like you get all shy, I find, all over again, but that's just me. But it is kind of nice because it's like you're doing the whole like redating again and getting to know each other again in a way. And it's kind of nice, and it kind of just helps having that healthy relationship, I guess, which I think that's really important. So just kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh
Hmm.
my God. It reminds me, I was on another podcast and now it's coming up again, the negligee talk. But I was at church in Texas alone. My husband was deployed. We had two kids, and I was always doing like MOPS, mothers of preschoolers, or in that space with, female mentorship that were two steps ahead of me to guide me. I knew they had wisdom and knowledge and biblical truth that I could apply to my life. So I wanted to be in that space. And so I was at this mother's retreat thing or something, just like a morning thing at the church. The kids are all in the room nearby in the daycare center room. And this woman who was kind of part of the presentation team, like rolls in with one of those, like if you're into modeling and stuff, those carts on wheels with all the clothes hanging on them. So it's on wheels, and we're all getting our Bibles out and getting settled by our tables and doing little meet and greets. And we look up and it's a whole rack of like negligees that she rolled in. So she
Oh,
brought that
wow.
in visual point. And yeah, we just everybody looked up like, what the heck? What did we sign up for? Where do we end up? So part of that discussion was setting up the stage for that intimacy for our husbands. I mean, yeah, I can be running around
Yeah.
with my usual look is like you hair in a bun, sweatpants on, t-shirt. I mean, we're in Florida right now, so a lot of heat. I'm just like half the time. If I put a sarong on, looks better. Like he's actually like, oh,
Yeah.
sarong. But hair in the bun with my shorts and this, nappy t-shirt. So, but yeah, to that visual, and they said, they all asked, when was the last time you guys put on like a nice, negligee for your spouse and, in the bedroom? And we're all like, oh, and I'm like, I got spit up on me. And babe, no, I'm not thinking no negligee. I
Yeah.
don't want to attract any of that. They explain that this is part of the courtship for a male, and he might actually, like to look at his wife as if they were dating before sometime with just
Yeah.
put the hair down, put the lipstick on, because my husband even says, you always put lipstick on for everybody else. What about me? It's every time you leave the house, you put, what about? So now I wear lipstick around the house more. And he's like, are you going somewhere? I'm like, no, honey, I'm just wearing it for you, So
Yeah,
yeah, the
exactly.
negligee story, like, yeah. So I ran out, of course, and got something and spent a little too much in the negligee. And of course, we have a joint account. He saw this. I don't even remember what the name of the company was, the business, but it definitely sparked a text. He was like, what the heck? Where are you? What are you buying? Like he didn't know what it was, but it was at least a text message of alert. Like my wife is spending, money over $300 or something. And I'm like,
Oh
just,
my.
just trust me and don't worry about it. But I'm like, oh, those
Yeah,
joint.
trust the process. Trust the process.
Exactly. Trust the process. So yes, now we will go on. We've talked about importance of being alone, personal growth for number one, mental health number two, rekindling your romance number three, number four, drum roll, is reducing resentment. Now that's a huge one. We can have a lot of resentful feelings being a military spouse. I have to be home with the kids doing this, and he gets to go off with his buddies and play. And then, even if it's the war zone, somehow we're still resenting they're defending our nation, whatever nation you're with. But there's this element of resentment that can creep in, very negative, and then all it
Yeah.
does is just spur on negative emotions, and is not good for a healthy relationship. So,
Yeah, this
what?
one comes out a lot, I find.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
really
what can you
common.
share on that? Please share, Lianne.
Um, I think it's similar to like what you just said. Like a lot of the times it's the mom or the dad even that's alone with the kid or the children if they have multiple and their partner is gone away for 5 6 months at a time. So the responsibility falls on the other parent. And then if the parent that's non-military, they want to go out and do stuff. The military parent is like, oh, what do you mean? How long are you going for? Whatever. Like, so it's kind of like I find it's to find that balance and try and make it fair. I think that's really important. And I find for me, like in the past, for personally, um, it never hits me that Dylan is gonna leave until I see his stuff on the floor,
Mhm.
like all around in the living room. And then I'm like, oh, okay, it's happening. And then I'm driving him to the airport, and then I come home to with an empty car and then an empty house. And I'm like,
Getting
okay, well
shivers again.
yeah. And
Mm.
then I'm like, okay, well that sucks. But I remember like not crying, only like once, I think the next day for like 10 minutes. And that was it. I was fine. But I know that's not everyone in every situation, but it's like having resentment in a way that they left. And then also, then you get used to a routine and you're doing your thing for 6 months at a time, let's say. And then I found for me, you kind of get used to another routine and kind of having resentment that he's home again and like, oh, what do you mean, like you're coming home already? And then you're always like settling. You're always changing your routine, always getting used to something. So I find it's very interesting
Mm.
dynamics and how that works.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you bring up another great point because it just reminded
Hmm.
me of when I was active duty, and we ended up in Houston, Texas for one of our assignments, and he said, "Don't worry, it's a reserve unit. Like I'm with the reserves now." I'm like, "Well, what do they do?" "Well, they're like the backup, like they don't really deploy. They're like in the
Mm,
background. We just kind of, if things really go bad, that's when they call us up. So I should be home for, a couple years." I don't think he was on deck for a month or two and came home and said,
yeah,
"Well, we're shipping out. We're doing the Iraq tour." I'm like, "What? You said it's the quiet reserve unit." So yeah, Semper Gumby wife. That's what I call myself. Always flexible.
yeah,
Semper Fidelis.
always.
That goes with the
It's
Marine
always
Corps. But
subject to change all the time.
life is subject to change, and it's it's
Hmm.
it's really living in that change, um and on like honoring it and respecting it and realizing, like you said, it's part of the process. So don't
Yeah,
ever think that whatever's written or what you hear is the final word. And when you expand your mind to know like this could change like in 5 minutes, I mean, our duty stations got changed. I was looking up something years ago for Florida. I had the schools printed, the grade A school list. I'm trying to, in my mind, visualize where we're going to be living, neighborhoods. I'm searching online, realtor.com and Zillow and all that. And then I think I printed like a half a pack of paper. I'm like, okay, I think I got all my notes. I'm going to start going through it. And we get a call from my husband at work, and he's like, "All right, open up your lap, open up the computer." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Just, I don't have time. I got 10 minutes now. Open it up. Type in UAE." And I'm like, "What? Why am I typing in letters?" "Follow instructions, honey. Just open up the computer." Okay. So I type in UAE. He's like, "What do you see?" I'm like, "I don't know. It looks like it's in the Middle East somewhere. I see a tower, L'Auberge, and I don't know, something in the Middle East." It's like, "Well, Florida's out, and should we go there? Because this guy in Florida's retiring. He's staying there. So we got to go somewhere else. So we can go there. Like, should we go there?" I'm like, "To the Middle East? The whole family? I don't know about that." And he's like, "I got 10 minutes to decide, honey. I gotta let the commander know. Yes or no, what's going on?" But I guess we had lived so much with flexibility. And I mean, I did the Peace Corps in Africa. My mom's German. I've traveled around. So I don't have that fear of the unknown going overseas. So I figured it's a family
Mhm.
assignment, family duty station. They must have pre-screened something if we can still go as a family. So
Right.
in 10 minutes was like, "Okay, honey, let's do it." And that was it. Like I threw out the Florida paperwork, bought another pack of Reba paper and started looking up everything on UAE. And,
Yeah.
there's a sense of fear, but also excitement. And how you translate that with the kids too is huge. Like with every duty station, but that's a whole other topic. I could have been
Did
miserable, energy, but it was always like an excitement thing. "We're moving again, kids. We got something else going. We're going here now. Actually, that changed. Now we're going here." They're just kind of like
yeah, changing
matter.
plans, going with the flow. Did you find when you were active duty or that you had a sense of resentment for anything, or even your children had resentment against their dad?
Yeah, I think there was resentment, like you said, both sides. So when I found out he was going to Iraq, I was resentful. Like, "You're leaving me again with the kids here. Like, what the heck? We just went over all this in another duty station. Now we're just repeating again. Like, how much am I supposed to do this emotionally alone again?" Thank
Yeah.
God I have a mother. She was retired, and she would come to help me. She'd just say, "What's this schedule? What's this?" And she would come to help for a few months every time he deployed, which was
Oh,
great.
good.
Then the kids really got to know their grandparent too, and they're so close to her now. They call her on WhatsApp in Germany, and they're all connected. So all that was
Oh,
building relationship.
cute.
So we brought in
Yeah.
grandma reinforcements and German women with little wooden stick. That was like, "Stop it, get off the chair." I mean, they were like, it didn't work when I would do it. I'd have to chase them around with the belt, like, "Come on, guys, mom is getting mad at you," and they'd laugh at me. But then grandma with the wooden spoon in the kitchen, "I'm watching you." They were just like, it was
Yeah,
great.
that'd be scary.
It was like the drill sergeant that took over the drill sergeant who
Yeah,
left.
really.
But yeah, so a little resentment there. But like you said, like have a little pity party, get over it, cry, whatever, but don't stay
Yeah.
stuck in that because that's not healthy and it's not gonna, produce any
It's not
positive
gonna,
results.
yeah, and it's not gonna change anything for sure.
And then I kind of got into my own groove and I'm running things on my own and I was going to work full time. I had the kids, one in school, one in daycare. I had a whole flow routine, drop everybody off, get them home. I had wonderful neighbors again in Texas. Like one guy showed up and with a lawnmower on his truck and just rang the doorbell and said, "I'm from the church. I'm here to cut your grass." Because,
Nice.
we'll let the grass grow when the guys are gone. Is that really like a priority when you feel like you're running the single parent thing? You've got kids, you're trying to do all their schedule, making all the decisions for them for school, for everything, the meals. the last thing you're thinking about is how long is my grass for the HOA letter to send you mail.
Exactly.
So this guy showed up and cut our grass. Another group of ladies would text me, hey, we made an extra casserole for you for dinner. Swing by and pick it up on the way home. And they realized I didn't want to go and sit down at a table with them and their whole family. I just want to get home to my kids and have our dinner,
Exactly.
the tuck in bed, the shower, the story, the tuck in the bed thing. So they got that, which was wonderful. And I was grateful. Not like, no, I can do it on my own. I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah,
Exactly.
it was a struggle if we would go to other homes, especially around holidays, and you're with families that were on base maybe or in the community that had their full family unit together. Well, of course, you're missing your guy, and the kids are looking at, the dad is home with his family, and your dad's not home. And so they're kind of like, it sets up for like, oh, okay, now we're here at this holiday party, but we don't have our hubby and daddy here, and other people do. And so you really, in that sense, do kind of self isolate, contain yourself with other, I think, military spouses with kids. Like there was a lot of meetups
Yeah.
like that. Moms and kids together, our husbands are all deployed with the same unit. And then that felt a little more, comfortable at the time because we would have resentment if we're going to a house that's got dad around and the whole unit. And then the kids are like, where's daddy? When is daddy coming back? And it's like, so yeah, that was a bit resentful. And then when he
Yeah.
came, they trained us in one spot. I don't know if it was just a spouse or we have what's called a family readiness officer. They probably changed the title now, but they were called froze. So they were kind of there to help the family while the guys were away with, just potlucks and event camaraderie events so we can get together and voice, concerns and just connect and laugh and cry together, whatever. So we had that set up as well, which was helpful. But she did tell us one time, the guys were getting ready to come back, and I was going to cut the grass. I have all the mail sorted. I mean, I was ready to have everything done. So all he had to do was walk in the door and sit on the couch and relax and take a deep breath, do some breath work, like
Well,
we said.
yeah.
But the woman actually gave us a whole different, tip structure and was like, so let the grass grow long when he comes back, and this will work good for you too, since you're still on the active duty side. I'm thinking like, let the grass grow long. They're like, your husband will need to feel needed when he comes home. If you've done everything for him, that's just another trigger to set them off into depression, to feel they're not valued, they're not needed. You've run the whole house alone very effectively, and you want to show it off like, look, I did this all. So let the grass go long, let the mail pile up a little in the mailbox. Don't even open the letters. Let him physically be the one. And I'm thinking like, no, I've been doing this for 8 months now. I want to do it. I got my routine. I know where the paperwork's going. And they're like, just let him be part of that process because that was all part of
Mm.
reintegrating, sharing some house chores and responsibilities with them. And so that's what I did. I followed that advice and just kind of slowly stepped back more. And like you said, now I'm in charge. Now we're more like, okay, who's taking the lead on this? We're equal, like we say in Christianity, people think
Yep.
submission, that we're a doormat for the guy, but no, there's different words, there's different biblical words that are stronger than submission. And it's more about,
Yeah.
equality.
Finding a balance.
Yes, the balance thing. So yeah, we go on and on about the resentment topic. So let's go
I
on
know.
to number. Hey, look at he wants to be part of the. He's like, I'm feeling left out right here. So cute.
Yeah, he's like, my dad goes away and I'm stuck with mom the whole time.
Yeah.
I feel resentment too.
Yeah. Do you feel like the dogs, they know when someone's gone? Like if my husband
Oh
goes
yeah.
out for the day, retire, like the dogs are by the door, they're kind of, where is he? He's left because we're
Oh
together so
yeah. And he's a daddy's boy, so he knows when dad's not
he needs
around.
therapy.
Yeah, sometimes I'd be like, "Where's dad?" And he goes to look out the window and they know
Oh,
for sure. But we have
what's
a
his
good
name?
little his name's Ozzy. He's
Ozzy.
2. We have a pretty good routine when dad's not around. So we
Mm-hmm.
make do. And I find what helps me too is I'm kind of more of a visual person, so I like to have a countdown on my phone and
Oh
see like
yeah.
how many weeks or months. And I'm sure for some people it makes them kind of sad, like, oh, I feel so long. But I like it that way because I'm kind of more a visual person. So, and sometimes it's encouraging for him as well. Like, oh, you're coming home in a couple of weeks, and oh,
Yeah.
really? And
Yeah,
so it's
that's
kind
so
of
true.
yeah,
Mentally, I remember like as soon as the day we give that final hug, goodbye, and kiss, and off he goes with his sea bag. The one positive thing, I'm like, okay, we're one day closer to the countdown. Like literally my
yeah,
mind like, okay, start the countdown. We're one day closer. He's gone now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, and go.
Yeah.
Now.
And then
Yeah.
somebody gave us a great tip once with kids. They were like still like elementary school age or so. And just to give them that visual, we did construction paper chain link. So we cut them all into
Oh,
strips,
nice.
different colored. And together with my two kids, we would staple, like little rings together, all the little chain
Yeah.
link kind of out of construction paper. And we would hang it and would go like all over the house, like over doors and around tables. Like it was just there. And every day, each of them got to take a turn to cut one of the links off.
Oh,
And
that's fun.
that was a really cool visual because they knew every time they cut that link, Dad was one day closer to coming home.
I love
So
that.
yeah, a little extra tips there. You'll get more nuggets than just 5 tips from us. So
Yeah.
let's go on to number 5. Number 5 is improving communication. So yeah, and it seems like you're in social work, so you're really good with your words and setting your boundaries probably and learning how to do effective
Mm-hmm.
communication with a spouse. But if we communicate effectively, then we're getting our thoughts and our feelings out there better. We're keeping
Yep.
like an even tone with the partner, like we're not escalating the voice. If explaining like your needs, your wants, what's important to you, just getting all that out in the air with your spouse. It's like your
Yep.
intimate partner that you're living with for life. So you want to be able
Yeah.
to
And
to
being
communicate
patient.
effectively. Yeah. So what can you add on the improving communication side of things?
I know when me and my partner, when we chat throughout the day or about our days when he's away, um, we like to take turns and we listen, kind of debrief about our day. We vent, especially him, but how much like bullshit it was throughout the day. So I'm like, oh, empathetic, and oh, I'm sure that was hard, and hopefully the next day's better. And it's like good validation, which I think is important. I'm not going to turn around and be like, oh, well, you signed up for this type of thing, kind of like guilt tripping, blaming the victim type of deal for the army. So I listened, understand that it was a hard day, and he does the same for me. So it's nice, and it's about finding a balance and um, just really using like active listening skills, I guess, and being there for your partner, even if it's like through FaceTime, phone, in person. But I find it's even more important when they go away. And just again, like how I mentioned earlier, is just finding the time, which I think is super important.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that just brings up another book too, like the love languages, isn't it? Like the 5 love languages or something. So when
Yeah.
we're communicating and expressing to our spouse, they might not be receiving it in a loving way. They might, because it's not their love language. So, and unfortunately, I have several love languages that he has to deal with me because people are like, "What's yours?" I'm like, "Well, for me, I need quality time with the family. I like touch. I like go over the whole thing." They're like, "Oh my God, your husband has
Yeah.
to take care of all that with you." I'm like, "Yeah, I need all the 5 love languages with me." And then if I ask him once in a while, like, "What's yours again?" He's like, action, just results, getting things done. So like even me just sitting too long in my office can trigger him. Like, you're not out doing enough, and where's your action? And we'll cut the grass, and like if stuff gets done around the house, and I help prune the trees or help plant a tree or something, and work in the garden or pick the tomatoes for our salad from our little garden that we have going. Everything grows in Florida. Then he's like,
Nice.
oh, she went in the garden, she used her hands and she picked this produce and now she put it in a salad. Like, yeah. But if I'm just typing things or leaving him lists of things to do, that's not his love language. So, and
Yep.
then I would say also like your tonality when you're expressing
Mm.
yourself, like your spouse can tell if it's coming from a place of the heart centered, or if it's more aggressive and defending and demanding, and my husband is a Marine, so he tends to give orders, and his voice can raise up a little, and I'm like, the voice is raising a little too high for me. That's not, you're not effectively communicating right now. Can you? And I'll start like, can you just lower the voice a little? So we
Yep.
go back and forth with that, and then that can trigger him more. Like, I'm not yelling. And I'm like, so we use our little Chihuahua. The pug's half deaf, so they're both 14 years old, a pug and a Chihuahua. But really, the Chihuahua, it's like the therapy dog. So if that Chihuahua who just sleeps all day on that little bed with the tongue hanging out, losing all his teeth, very relaxed, and in the van life with us, those 2 dogs go everywhere with us. If that Chihuahua jumps up, startled and, starts to run to the other side of the room with the tail tucked underneath,
Mm,
my sign. I'm like, the dog has now moved to the other side of the room. I'm going to remove
yeah,
from the space right now. We're going to go take some deep breaths separately, and then we're going to regroup. And he's like, still like, nah, what do you mean I'm yelling? I'm like, the dog has now gone to the other side of the room. That's our sign. When the dog moves and tucks
yeah,
the if you're scaring the dog,
they
now you're
know.
me.
Yeah,
You think
they
so?
know and they can sense stuff,
Yeah. So I use the dog there and communicate. Some part of communication means like taking a pause from each other, like going in separate rooms. My husband has, not been found on a paddle board. Like, I'm going to go paddle now, just take the boat out himself to go fishing a little bit. And doesn't mean, we're getting a divorce, doesn't mean we're breaking up, but it's like he just needs to be alone to clear his head out of some
Yep,
conversation and that's healthy. And then we come back and we can continue, in a calm conversation and always try to find some kind of compromise, solution. Like, that's what a marriage is, compromise. Someone's always going to be compromised
exactly.
back and forth.
All the
So
time.
yeah, so I guess we've gone through the five tips for
Yep.
effectively, living alone, separated while your guy is deployed, and training, all those things. So hopefully we brought value to our audience today. And the only other thing I would add would be like, one of the elements you can do together is get out in nature together. Like, this is kind of our season now. We were just getting out of the military 10 years ago, and so we went through a whole metamorphosis of, finding our new living purpose, what's important to us, where we want to spend our time, because it's a blank slate when you leave the military. So that's kind of the coaching space I'm in a lot too. And yeah, we ran a boating ministry out of California, taking out injured vets with PTS. That was amazing. And as negative as people were, like, well, what if someone slips and falls on your boat? You're going to be sued. You're going to lose everything. You're like, what? We're not working it that way. I have a little liability waiver, and it was the most
Mm-hmm.
pleasant experience. We brought in one family after another that was dealing with PTSD. The guys would come back and self-medicate. Everybody's running to the base, getting their pills. They're like staying in their beds just with the shades closed and not connecting with the family. So I would just say, can we take you on a boat ride? Like, that's all I had. You can't help everybody, but you can help
Mm,
the community that's around you. So one boat ride at a time. I have like a spreadsheet. I don't even know how many over 3 years. It was, probably 20, 30. And, we pick them up at church too. My husband would call me and be like, hey, this guy's deploying. His family's in town. I'm putting them on a boat ride so that they can harvest those memories even before they would leave. I'm like, what a genius idea. Grab the kids, grab the in-laws, get on the boat, go see some whales, dolphins, sea life, whatever, and experience all that love and connection and time on a really tight space, because the boat's like 21 foot. All that to set up for, success for deployment. So when the guy leaves, when the armed service guy leaves, he can remember that beautiful day on the water with his family. The wife can remember that. The kids, everybody that was in that space can remember that. And I call it harvesting, your memories. So when they're feeling down, whatever, they can just remember back that beautiful day, bring them right back to that spot where they were breathing the sea air and, think about all the five senses
mm,
that happened that day. So yeah, it was called actually Christ-like compassion and creating memories on the water. So we did that until the pandemic hit and shut us down overnight, and everybody kind of had to reinvent themselves too. So we ended up just
yeah.
renting out a house in where were we, California, and found the used van and did the van life thing for 8 months till we settled. So now that we've got the van life nature element side of it, I see such an importance of people getting out into nature. And I'm sure in Canada, we're going to drive through Canada like in June. We're going to Alaska. We're doing our Alaska summer adventure. So we're going to be somewhere going through Canada. I don't know
Nice.
the route yet, but I keep hearing beautiful things. So if we can just get out, even a 20-minute nature break a day, like reduces stress and anxiety, to breathe fresh air. I'll just go for a walk around, the block even, and look at the palm trees. So yeah, I would say add nature into your life together. And yeah, I do the van life kind of consulting too, your nomadic bestie. So people that want to consider adding that in their package, that's something else we can talk about. So how do people reach you, Lianne, if people have questions for you after we get off and we showcase this and broadcast it?
Um, I am on Facebook, mainly Facebook, but I do have an Instagram as well, and all my socials are on Linktree, so you can decide which one you want to find me on
Okay. You'll
through
put it in the
there.
description, I guess, right? When we
Yep,
post it, it'll all
yep.
be in the
I'll put it
description.
in the show notes. So, but you can find me and pretty much anywhere at Coffee and Crime with a Military Wife. And yeah, you can reach me and get a hold of me anytime and from anywhere. So I'm never too far away.
Oh, and she is a busy woman, running multiple
Hmm.
different jobs and stuff. So give us a little grace if we take a little time to get back to you. And I'll be doing the van life from Florida all the way to Alaska
Yeah,
and back. So moving a little slower, nature will be the priority and hanging out with my 84-year-old mom who's joining us from Germany.
yeah,
So
that's
that'll be fun.
great.
So, and to reach me, I am at resetwithvanessa.com. It's mainly my website, resetwithvanessa.com, and I've got all my other social links on there. I also, for the US military side, do veteran affairs disability rating audits. So that's a whole other thing. I don't know how they handle it in Canada, but for guys that are getting out, they get their retirement pay and then they also get their compensation pay. And a lot of guys are bottlenecked and stuck with doing that paperwork. It
Mhm.
can be overwhelming. It's government red tape. So I actually have partnered up with a third party contractor, and they help submit all that stuff and get the guys processed. So they've helped my husband, and it changed his rating for life. So that gives us it's a game changer for how your bills are coming in, how much you're paying, and what money you're tangibly working with when you get out. So I encourage everybody who is in the process of trying to increase their disability rating to reach out to me too for that. So thank you. It has been a pleasure, Lianne. I'm so glad we connected, and we might have to have more conversations like this.
I know, yeah. It was
Well,
great.
all right. Well, signing off from your life beyond the military because we want you to focus on what your life looks like after. And it's so important that we're talking to Lianne, who is active duty at this stage, because she's transitioning and I get to kind of watch her grow and blossom. I call it
Hmm.
yeah, like helping people from battlefield to blissful retirement. That's one of my taglines. So you're kind of in the battlefield zone and you have got hope and a whole structure and a plan. You're doing great to get to the spot that I'm in, which is the blissful retirement spot. So signing
Yeah,
off
that's the
and
plan.
thank you.
Thank you.